The Sourcing Hub is a tool which helps companies to identify and mitigate risks in their supply chains. So for example, if you are importing commodities to the EU, you can use the Sourcing Hub to identify what legality risks are in your supply chain and get help on how to mitigate those risks. The Sourcing Hub has some very detailed risk assessments which helps you as a company to identify what risks are in your supply chain. But the Sourcing Hub actually also goes one step further. So the Sourcing Hub also says, how do you then mitigate each of those risks? And what we typically see is there are some different tools you use when you mitigate the risks. So the Sourcing Hub will help you and say, for example, what are the documents you need to mitigate all of the risks in your supply chain? And then it helps you to understand does that document look like? What signatures are supposed to be on it? Are there any websites where you can validate those documents? And the same if you need to do stakeholder consultation, the Sourcing Hub will help you in saying what are the stakeholders you need to talk to and what are the topics you need to cover. So it basically takes you as a user on a step-by-step journey on how you mitigate risks in your supply chain. So at the moment, the Sourcing Hub covers timber, and we cover more than 70 different countries of timber exporting countries. Because the Sourcing Hub was introduced with the EU timber regulation, but now with the EU deforestation regulation, we will be expanding the Sourcing Hub to also cover deforestation commodities going forward. The Sourcing Hub has very quickly become a very popular tool for many companies to use, because many platforms will help inform you what is the applicable legislation you need to comply with when you import timber, for example. But the Sourcing Hub goes one step further and says, what is the risk that legislation is being violated? And even further saying, how do you then mitigate those risks? So many companies prefer the Sourcing Hub because they just get so much detailed information on there. And actually also the competent authorities that are enforcing, for example, the EU timber regulation, also use the Sourcing Hub just to get a better understanding of what is the legislation that they need to make sure companies comply with when they import timber to the European Union. But it's actually not only limited to the European Union, it's companies on a global scale are using the Sourcing Hub because it has basic information on timber legality in many different countries. Yeah, so the risk assessments are made through a process which is usually 1 to 2 months, where we engage with in-country experts to analyze what are the legality risks in the country. And also our own expert team work together, and then we also do stakeholder consultation along the way. So we really vet the conclusions and test if they're correct. So at the moment, the Sourcing Hub covers mostly timber legality because it was developed to fit the EU timber regulation. But with the EU deforestation regulation, the idea is to expand the Sourcing Hub so that it will also cover deforestation commodities and also cover deforestation risks. In the new version of our Sourcing Hub, we will make it even more user-friendly. So far you've had to maybe read 100 pages of a risk assessment and extract data from that. In the new version, we will make it even easier for you. So we focus a lot on the risk mitigation process. So we make it easier for companies to identify risk and then see directly what is the mitigation action you need to take to mitigate that risk. So we make it very easy for you to identify these are the documents you need to get, this is how you validate the documents, these are the stakeholders you need to consult with on each of the risks you need to mitigate. So for users going forward, the new Sourcing Hub will just make it a lot easier to actually mitigate the risks in your supply chain.